Friends, get ready. Maybe you will need a pen and a paper to take notes. Today, I'm laying out all that I ever said about ancient Indian history in a single video. Well, our story begins just after the great flood of Noah, which destroyed the whole world. Noah is called Manu in the Indian flood story. With the help of the biblical genealogy, we are able to find out that it happened around 3300 BC. The Bible states that Noah had 3 sons, and it is their descendants that replenished the entire earth. And here are their portions of lands. Ham's land was Africa. His name was pronounced as Khawm, Kham in Hebrew. In India, they have kept his name intact. With a title added to it, they call him Kamdev. By the way, Dev is a person by his good deeds of many animal sacrifices called yajnas, rose to the status of gods in Hinduism. However, Google translates Kamdev as Cupid, which is not true because Kamdev was the son of Noah, which is Manu, and Cupid is the lover of Aphrodite. These are 2 entirely different characters. The confusion here is due to the fact that both Cupid and Kamdev are depicted holding a bow and an arrow in older paintings. So people got mixed up and concluded that these 2 are one. It is the same with Dionysus too, because some Greeks painted him with a wine goblet in his hand. They have made him a drunkard, reveler, and the one behind Bacchanalia. Again, it's not true. Now, do you really want to know what Bacchanalia is all about? It is a memorial ceremony of a person. Do you see a person whose hands cut off? It is him they are remembering. Here's another one. And here's yet another. Now, who is this person without hands? We'll find out soon. But before that, Bacchanalia originated from ancient Italy. I would like to lay out the series of events prior to that. After the flood, Ham was in Egypt along with his son Cush, who was ruling Egypt. Being the patriarch, he didn't have a land of his own. His job was to oversee the operations of the lands belonging to his descendants in Mesopotamia, Canaan, Egypt, and Libya, and sort out any disputes that may arise. At this point in time, Gomer, the king of Italy, also known as Comerus Gallus, passed away. Ham thought it was the best time to carve out a place for himself, and he seized Italy. Meanwhile, news came from Mesopotamia that his grandson Nimrod, the Shiva of Hinduism, was killed by the water nymph Kali in ancient Assyria, and she had taken over his throne as Queen Semiramis. Kamdev, who was Ham, mourned Nimrod's death in Italy. This ceremony was called Bacchanalia because it mourned the death of Bacchus, the son of Cush. The handless person we saw prior was Shiva. In India, this event is depicted symbolically as Kali placing her foot on Shiva's body, and Mahashivratri is the Indian version of Bacchanalia with the night vigil, fasting, and an intoxicating drink called bhang, just as they get drunk during Bacchanalia. This drinking part is born of one of Ham's flawed ideas that when you get drunk, one can forget the physical and connect with the spiritual. Now, coming back to our story, we know that Kamdev was the son of Noah. According to Hindu literature, as well as the Jain religion, Kamdev's brother was the Bharata Chakravarti, the founder of India. We know it was Shem because India legitimately belonged to Shem. One can read it in the book of Jubilees. Moreover, Japheth, the third son of Noah, never came to India. Furthermore, the Indian literatures tell us that Rishabhadev was the father of both Kamdev and Bharat, which are Ham and Shem. This gives away the fact that Rishabhadev is Noah. Actually, this is where the Jainic history begins, with Noah being their first Tirthankara. Now, Tirthankara is a person who helps one cross this huge gulf of water which we call life and reach the other side where God is. In light of all this, the claims that India was established by Dushyanta and Shakuntala's son, or Lord Rama's brother, who also had the same name Bharata, are not true, because there had been many more kings in India prior to them. Now, coming back to the Jainic beliefs, Ham the Kamdev is extremely important to them. They call him Bahubali in their religion, which means the one with strong arms. And there is an 1042 years old, 57 feet tall, monolithic statue of Ham standing at a place called Shravanabelagola, which is situated about 90 miles from Bangalore city in India. They say it is taller than any other statue in Egypt. Now, why should they compare it with Egypt? It's because that's where Ham the Kamdev came from. However, a common believer would not know all this. Do you know why? Ham lived around 3000 BC and Jainism adopted his story around 500 BC, which is 2500 years later, and their ideas are pretty vague. Now, there are 24 Tirthankaras in Jain religion. However, Kamdev could not qualify for one because of his obviously flawed character, which again is not made public. Now, what about his character? Well, Ham the Kamdev was a married man even before the flood. Indian literatures tell us that his first wife's name was Preeti. While she was still alive, Ham married his stepsister Rhea forcefully, who was already married to someone else. She is the one known as Rati Devi in India, and one of Rati Devi's children was the Zeus of the Greek mythology, who the Indians call Indra in the Indian mythology. Furthermore, Jains believed that Shem was proud and arrogant, whereas Ham was good. According to them, Shem challenged Ham in a duel in which Shem lost and his kingdom as well. But Ham, being a good man, felt very remorseful that he fought with his own brother, and he gave back the kingdom to him, and he went into the forests to lead an ascetic life. And again, they do not know that Kamdev was in India because he had been expelled by Dionysus out of Egypt, since he had murdered Dionysus' father, the king Hammon of Libya. And Rati Devi, the second wife of Ham, the Kamdev, was the wife of Hammon. Meanwhile, from the Greek classic Dionysiaca, we know that Dionysus came marching all the way to India to punish the barbarians. This does not mean that Dionysus was an enemy of the Indians. In fact, Shem and Dionysus were allies. In the post-flood world, there were only two political factions. One is that of Noah, which followed Noah's god Yahweh, and the other one, led by Ham the Kamdev, which worshipped Lucifer and the deities of the abyss. Dionysus, like his father Hammon, belonged to Noah's faction. That's why he came to help Shem and banish Ham and his men known as Aboriginals out of India. However, when Ham got the scent of Dionysus moving towards India, he yielded back the kingdom to Shem and escaped into the mountainous region of Bactria. There is a claim that he was the Zoroaster of the Persians, and he wrote their holy book, Avesta, as well. Apparently, Ham, when he came to India, had entered India from the south because he has influenced the southern Tamil community in a great way. He introduced a lovers' festival called Kaman Vizha for the young ones. The world-famed Kama Sutra bears his name. And also, Tamil people celebrate Kaman Kuttu even today in the villages of Tamil Nadu and in Sri Lanka, which is the reenactment of the life of Ham the Kamdev. Soon after Ham's arrival in India, Cush, who had been expelled along with Ham out of Egypt, went to the Near East where he established a city named Kish. We have archaeological record of the city stating that after the flood, when the kingship descended from heaven, it descended upon Kish. This is the city later reclaimed by Sargon I. Cush, after establishing the city of Kish, moved into the northern parts of India along with his sons such as Rama and Krishna, and they started ruling over the ancient Indians. This is the Cush known as Kashyapa in Hindu religion. When all this power shift happened, Shem's descendants, who were the Brahmins, managed to be the priestly class of people under their new African rulers. The norm in India became like the descendants of Cush, who called themselves Kshatriyas, would be the kings, and the Brahmins would be the temple priests and hold some administrative positions in the governments as well. This went on for about 2,400 years, during which the Brahmins had become excessive in their religious demands on the commoners. It is similar to the behavior of the priestly sons of Eli, which we read in the Bible in the 2nd chapter of the book of 1 Samuel. Well, around the turn of the 5th century BC, both Mahavir, the founder of Jainism, and Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, rose up against these excesses and started their own religions. Among these two groups, the Jains in particular chose to glorify Shem's opponent Ham, who was the Kamdev, because they hated the Brahmins, who were the descendants of Shem. However, out of these two new religions, Buddhism gained momentum in India when the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka embraced Buddhism in the second half of the 3rd century BC. This brought down the dominance of Brahmins in India for a brief period until General Pushyamitra Sunga, who was a Brahmin, killed the last Maurya king, Brihadratha, and rose to power around the year 185 BC. This is when the Greek influence was still felt in the Indian subcontinent. Soon, the Romans came to power. In India, there were many rival kings, and some aligned themselves with the superpowers such as Rome for protection, which of course cost them a lot of money. It is during this time Jesus was born. Christianity came to India as early as 52 AD. However, it didn't make a big impact in India. Then the Indian kingdoms and their rulers continued with the Kshatriya king at the helm, Brahmin priests at their temples, a trading community, common folks, and the untouchables. This was the pattern by default. Then, in the 7th century AD, the Muslim armies invaded India. It was brutal. Later, in the 15th century, when the Mughals arrived in India, they expanded their Islamic kingdom. Then came the Portuguese, the Dutch, the French, and the British from the 17th century onwards to colonize India, out of which the British prevailed, the details of which are not hard to find. Today, India is a free country moving towards Hindu dominance, which does make its minorities jittery. However, I believe God is still on the throne and He will do what is best for His people. Thanks for watching.